Zach, how are ya?
Doing great, Alex.
How
are you doing?
Of the co-hosts here, top two for me.
I really appreciate that.
Do you know who the second is?
Like tied for number one?
Number one first, but tied.
1A. Well, that would be you.
Because my name's Alex.
Yeah, and
Alex Blum.
I'd be 1B for Blum, which is my last name, but you also have B.
So
we'll
I'm
stick with A
both.
for you.
Okay.
You're 1A and 1B. Yeah, that's true. I'm number
Episode 8 of A Mile High and About to Die, our loyal, faithful, brotherly co-hosts for the week.
Yes.
Alex and Zach. Zach, I am excited to be here with you.
Me too.
We're both wearing white shirts today, maybe an angelic, upbeat episode for us.
It's so upbeat because we're about to do amends and we're becoming willing to make amends. Oh my God, I'm a little off key because it's fucking hard. It's coming. The hard part is coming. But we're ready for it. We're becoming willing in this step.
So step 8, to frame what we're talking about, is made a list of all the people we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. The associated principle?
Brotherly love or family love. The idea that we're all brothers and sisters to each other. Love. Moving into the heart space.
And so this it sort of reminds me of step 6 in a way, which we went over 2 steps back, where it's this sort of like, I'm prepared for it.
Yes.
You know, I'm prepared to have my defects of character removed. I'm prepared to make these amends. Before we get too deep into that, why don't we just recap what was step 7 about last week? We talked about something. I don't know. I wasn't listening.
Step 7. Well, the principle behind step 7 is humility, and we are 2 of the most humble people on the planet, so it's good that we're the ones delivering this podcast to you. So humility is, we're moving through this idea, we're taking a look at ourselves, okay? We're trying to figure out, there's some problem in our lives, we're looking at it in a new way in the early steps, and then we're starting to look inward to find, what is going on with us that we're not experiencing happiness, joy, and freedom all the time. Because those things are possible for people to experience all the time. There are others out there in the world who have figured out how to do just that, emotionally and, thinking good thoughts and thinking thoughts towards a positive future. So how do we move into that? Well, we got to look inside in steps 4 and 5. And steps 6 and 7 are kind of these steps that go together. Willingness and humility. I'm going to sit and meditate in step 6 after I've had a chance to kind of look inward and say, where am I going wrong? Where am I being wrong-minded, you could say, so that I can move into right-mindedness, so I can move into moments of unity throughout the day where I feel connected to all things and connected to a higher sense of self and vision and purpose for my life. So I'm staying in this place. If I can stay humble as much of the time as possible, then I can bring all my gifts into the world as long as I lead with humility. Like a good boxer doesn't lead with his chin. He's tucking his chin in and he's kind of going, okay, how can I serve? Where is this guy showing me that I can help him? Help him meet the mat. I'm not trying to. So we're keeping our chins tucked and we're moving forward in humility to kind of say, how can I help the world today? Which there's one more big skill, probably 2 more big skills that we're going to be talking about in steps 8 and 9. The first, the ultimate outcome is amends. We're going to be addressing people that we've harmed, and we're going to make amends to them. Step 9 is when we're going to make the amends, but we don't need to think about the amend just yet. The problem now probably is the willingness to make the amend. I don't know about you, but where were you at when you finished step 7, moving into step 8?
So I think I was in a few places, right? I mean, one is you have this like momentum. At this point, I'm starting to see a lot of like positive changes in my life. I'm not like looking to like figure out how I'm going to pay for lunch. I have a regular job. I have some people in my life that are willing to deal with me. I have a sponsor that seems to care about me to some degree. I've told all of these like dark secrets I thought I would never tell anybody, and I'm really trying to live into this new life. And so I think there's a part of me that was excited about like, all right, like let's keep trucking through these things. Who are these people? Who do I need to talk to? How do I get it done? And there's another part that'd be like, oh, but like I have to say sorry to my brother, but he's a dick. I don't want to talk to him at all, and I'm embarrassed about the things I did, So, both some resistance and some determination, I would say, willingness.
So you're having like some early successes all of a sudden, right? Like you're in this place of like, holy shit, I've got all of these new solutions for the same old problems that I used to drink and do drugs or act out over. now I know I can give my fear away and get recentered on my identity here in this world. You know, I can give away, I can be saved from anger and be useful to the person that I might have gotten angry at before. I can ask for new ideals and like ask to, you know, live towards them instead of staying stuck beating myself up about the old patterns that I'd get into of you know, self-harm or harming others. I can say thank you when something good happens and just keep on moving forward without having to, you know, create doom and gloom because something good's happened. Well, now something bad has had to happen. I'm letting go of all these old patterns of thought, and I'm going towards a brighter future. But we also, like we've said, you know, we need one more set of things. Like, there's still some things that are hanging on, it seems like. Okay, and those the underlying stuff that we just haven't been able to really get at. And I think that, you know, ultimately what we're here to do is, you know, step 8 is about brotherly love. It's about forgiveness. Okay, like forgiveness is this huge thing, and it's implicit in this idea that if I'm going to ready myself to go make amends, well, first of all, I might have harmed somebody. Well, what if they harmed me too? Well, I'm not going to them and being like, well, you owe me an apology. I'm here to make an amend and sorry for my part. What's your part? That's not what it's about. It's really more about like, I'm not carrying anything with me anymore. And in order for me to not carry this old stuff with me, I need to be able to wash my hands of the wrongs that they might have done me, that I might be perceiving accurately or inaccurately. And I don't always really know. I can't really trust my own brain to accurately identify where I've been harmed. So it's kind of like I need to do some work to forgive them if I'm going to, you know, move in that forward direction. But
and I think it's important to say, you know, like this old-timey word, like an amends, it's not make an apology or say I'm sorry. This mending, right? It's like a recombining or a healing process. It doesn't mean like I'm just sorry to you or you tell me I'm sorry. It's like I just want to heal the thing that has been between us, you know, like fixing a fractured bone or something.
Right, and so there's a natural thing that's going to occur. Now, I can't get in there and make the bone heal. There's a natural process that happens, and it's more about can I realign the bone so that they can naturally heal? You know, so we're attempting to go to these people and say like, look, we may have broken this bone and we can't heal it, but we need to line things back up and let you know, hey, we were out of line and we're trying to get back in line with a healing that could happen here. Also, amend means change. So it's kind of the idea of like, I have been through this process where I know for me it was like I wasn't allowing love into my life. Now I've been allowing myself to have a relationship with love, allowing myself to have a receiving relationship with love and good things. I'm letting myself receive these things now. Even though I know that, even though it still probably feels funny, I'm allowing those things to happen so that I'm not going to go out and harm people anymore because I wasn't allowing myself to feel love. Like there's this big relationship with all this stuff. If I don't allow myself to receive love, it's going to mean that I'm probably going to end up hurting myself, and then I'll be hurting other people. So this is the idea that all of this is connected, and we're going to look at these connections and pull way back so we can see all these connections now.
Great.
Great. So we're here to change, and like the idea is when we show up at someone's door to make an amend, that we are already changed. And so before I'm, you know, this idea of becoming willing here, I think is really about, you know, the way that we do it is we ask for the willingness. You know,
so there's sort of four options, right, in the amends Pascal's wager square, which is either I'm able to do it and I can. That's the most straightforward. I'm able to do it, or I'm willing to do it, sorry, and I can. I'm willing and able. I'm willing and unable. So maybe the person, I don't know how to get in touch with them, or maybe they've passed away, or maybe they won't answer my calls or something like that. And then there's I'm unwilling to do it and able to do it. So it's like, yeah, like I can call my brother, but it's gonna be weird and like it's probably not worth it.
Or it's like I've stolen from someone or I've committed a crime. You hear this a lot.
Yes.
You know, and I'm able to do it, but I don't want to make that amend. I'm afraid of making that amend.
Like why would I go to the police station to let them know about the thing I got away with? That was the success. I got away with it.
Exactly.
Is it even a crime?
Yeah, except for now it's eating away at me, right? Yeah. And what's the fourth one?
Unwilling and unable. So I don't want to tell you about it, and I already burnt down the police station, so there's no police station to go tell.
Right, totally.
That's the ultimate crime.
My granddad was an asshole to me, and he's dead, and I don't want to. Why? Yeah, I don't need to address that. He's dead. Fuck him. You know, like that kind of thing. I never got to meet my grandfathers. So sorry, granddads, if you took that personally out there somewhere.
Okay, so those are the 4 options.
Yeah, so it's good to kind of touch back in on the 7th step here. The 7th step is a prayer.
Because I really think that, like, you know, these, if I have these, now this is getting really real, like I'm gonna, you know, it doesn't feel good. Like I'm really mad at somebody and I'm supposed to go and like talk to them about my part in things. Every defective character I have is gonna crop up and be every single old behavior that every skill I know to avoid doing something I don't wanna do.
Exactly. You know, and like the guy that took me through the steps told me, like, this is really about, it's not that big. It's more like you've spilled some milk, and this is what you do to clean up the milk. You know, you made a mess. This is what you go do to clean up it doesn't put the milk back in the bottle. It just means, yeah, we know how to clean up the mess now. This is the process for that, so that I have a complete worldview in my head that, like, I'm going to make mistakes. It's not about not making mistakes. It's about trying not to, but when I do, I now have a method to kind of move through that. To go and address the things that I've knocked over in my life, whether I meant to or not.
I like that. I'm lactose intolerant, so
yeah, makes me gassy. Yeah,
it does.
So to go back to this idea, of the 7-step prayer. This is a tough thing that Alex is talking about. This is a hard process to go and show up at somebody's door and actually tell them the truth about what's gone on with you. You know, hey, I've been out of line. I've wronged you. In looking at myself, you know, to try and heal, I realize that I've wronged you, and I'm showing up here to let you know that I've wronged you, to see if I can make it right. If there's anything that I can do to make it right. To just, you know, showing up, hopefully changed. And this is, you know, these are the last 2 action steps. You know, if you're doing the steps, it takes some time to work through them. You know, it can take, you know, some people do it up to a year and a half. It took me before I took some time off in between a few steps, but you know, to get to the place where I was actually wanting to show up at people, you end up wanting to show up there and make these amends, okay? And so by the time I was willing to do that, it was because I had done a lot of this prayer that I had never tried before in my life. I felt the movement of love into my life, regardless of how much shame I had, how much guilt I had, how much of a piece of shit I felt like I was in my addiction. I was able to show up at these people's doors, and I was doing a lot of good, going to meetings and trying to help people, right? So I'm trying to, that 7-step prayer, when it talks about, we should just reiterate it real quick. It's, my Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defective character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. What is that bidding? It's the amends. One of the things that it is. It's not just, you know, going out to live life. It is that. But right now in step 7, moving to step 8, it's, I'm going to go make amends, and I need to be realigned around the real, where is the strength coming from in my life? It's coming from this attitude of humility so that love can come into my life and I can move from as an agent of love to go and make amends. Okay, and I want to like stay in that as much as I can. So do you have anything else in the 7-step prayer and how that moves us into 8?
I think for me it's, you know, one of the things that has been helpful in my amends of things that have been uncomfortable is, you know, all the steps leading up to that, especially through step 7, is basically saying I'm somebody that's transformed and new at this point. And so, like, I'm going to go clean up the milk that was spilled, but really it's almost like the guy who spilled the milk almost is a separate version of me, and I'm just
he wouldn't have taken the responsibility
right, that guy's not a milk cleaner, and so by definition of me cleaning it, I'm actually not that, like, attached to the shame of milk spilling in this analogy, because it's a different guy, right? Like, I've cleared and done my part, and I'm healed by a higher power. Those defects of character have been removed, and now I'm just a new guy that cleans up milk. That's just what I'm into. Mm-hmm. So for me, that sort of sense of being reborn, in a sense, sort of reduced a lot of the emotion and attachment and fear I had around it. Like, if I showed up and the person said, no, I think you're an asshole, like, they just sort of they're not familiar with the new version of the person even talking to them. And so it's not so personal anymore.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And so
Like,
we
you kind of made a face like that's disturbing.
no, because I went to a place inside, that probably is disturbed. So what I found in my step work, there were a lot of people that were talking about steps 4 and 5, doing this inventory and putting resentments on this inventory, and putting themselves on the resentment list. Like my number one resentment was with myself, and in my head I was like, these fucking people, like
this guy.
like you're ever gonna wash that off? To me, it just didn't compute. Because my computer was so built around this idea of shame to begin with. Like that was my principal problem in life, was that I felt shame.
That's my number one hobby.
Yeah, it's every hobby I ever had was built around shame. The first feeling I ever remember feeling from my earliest memory was shame. And so everything from my life goes from there, So the drinking problem, my selfishness, my dishonesty, my delusion that I was, that I didn't have a problem or that I could control it. It was all tied to this idea of like, I'm trying to outrun this shame, and this shame is spreading in my subconscious, so that anytime something reminds me of shame, I'm stuffing it in my subconscious and going the other direction. So more and more, my subconscious is now teeming with all this unhealthy, toxic shame, and I'm becoming a toxic person.
And so you found that actually it turned out you could move past that.
Yeah. So the genius of the steps, by doing steps 8 and 9, I actually was able to finally confront and address that I had these deeply held beliefs, in little kid language, but very loud, little kid logic. I've fucked everything up here. I've hurt my family, so I should die.
Yeah.
There was something there, that's what it was very little kiddish, but I didn't know that it was a little kid memory.
Right.
It was just speaking over me in my life, concurrently, And
I think the other thing is, in some way, if we don't resolve things, like they're still living issues. And so for me also, this ability to go and be ready to make an amends, and then, to save you the surprise, in step 9, you go and make the amends directly, is a way to sort of put those things to bed. Like if I can apologize for a thing I did in the past, it must mean that it's in the past, I can't apologize, I can't be simultaneously beating you up and saying sorry for it. Exactly. It has to be already over. And so it's a way for me to also place things behind myself and then, remove them rather than, an active issue.
Well, and that's an interesting point, because we're talking about removal of bullshit in our life. Like step 7 is, humbly ask for God to remove these defects of character. Yeah. We're trying to remove the bullshit, because the idea here is that joy and happiness and freedom is underneath everything. Like it's right here, but we're putting extra shit on top of it. We're allowing fear to persist, shame to persist. So it's up and out. So what are the actions that, if the outcome is that we want is removal of all the extra bullshit, and shame and guilt are the most, deeply tied in here. What are the actions that get us the outcome of those being fucking removed? And it's steps 8 and 9. It's becoming willing in step 8 to make these amends, which means I'm going to be asking for help from a higher power. Like, okay, now I need your willingness. Like I've gotten rid of this other stuff. Now I need your strength, your love, how you think about things to flow into me. Now that I've cleared this vessel, give me the stuff that you have to give so I can go and give this to others.
I think it's interesting because in the previous steps also, right, I've asked, let's do a will exchange. Take mine, which is self-seeking, give me yours, which maybe is more useful. And so it's interesting in this step, it's I'm literally not willing to do this, but I'm not working from my will, I'm working from God's will.
Exactly, yeah. And it's this crazy thing, you can try this at home, by the way. If you're not willing to do something, my wife asked me to do something last night. She was like, oh, hey, we got people coming over in a couple minutes. Can you go and, spray down the bathroom? And there was this old little kid, Zach, that was like, I want to go up to my bed and get on the internet and fall asleep. Because whenever...
I didn't see that going there.
Well, that was my pattern. I think there's something in me I don't want to...
do anything hard.
Well, it's probably this old slothful thing. I'm not going to be diligent. If you try to tell me something to do that is very hard for me to enjoy doing, I'm going to quit on it. And I won't tell you. I'm just going to go somewhere else so you don't bother me, and I'm going to stop doing this.
I like that.
So this is a very slothful, thing. And it used to happen all the time. My mom would be like, go clean your room. And I'd be like, okay, will do. And I'd go up to my room and I'd fall asleep. So I kind of had this pattern of anytime somebody would tell me something to do, I would go, and it was healthy for me to do it, but it involved any amount of work. I would go to another room and sleep.
Just-
Yeah, like, and I've experienced this like sometimes when I'm like, hey, have you tried doing this? People are like, ugh, like,
Gotta go.
Don't need to pray about that. Don't need to
yeah.
meditate. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Don't need to look at myself. And I think it goes to this unconscious level. When you start yawning, when you start like, you know, shifting your attention, like your internal attention's like, nope. I think it's because there's pain involved. You know, and I think, because I'm trying to look at it objectively, right? And I've had it so much in my life, I had to address this so that I could do things that were good for me when nobody was telling me to do it, or even if somebody was telling me to do it.
Like sing like no one's watching.
Yes, exactly. Dance like, you
No
know,
one's dancing.
like your pants are on fire. Yeah. So anyway, the idea is like, so even though that happened last night, so here's what I mean about try it at home. That's one of those little things that sets me off, that I want to like go into unconsciousness and hide out, you know. Instead, I could see it coming, which is a fucking miracle that happens today. I could see that this was coming, and I was like, God, because I talked to this thing like it's like I just know what it is now. I've been talking to it long enough, I can just do that, I guess. I was like, God, help give me the willingness to do what Katie has asked me to do. And mysteriously, you know, it was like, oh yeah, it was like something got removed, and it was just, I had a direct line to taking the action. It was some internal reshuffling real quick. It was like a, you know, a nudge, and all of a sudden I could go and I cleaned the stuff, and I just got it done, and actually I enjoyed doing it too. So it's the idea that like anything that I need to do, from the worst, you know, most mundane things like doing my taxes or cleaning, or if I ask for the willingness to do it, a little experiment, the willingness might come. And if it doesn't, you can just keep asking, or like make it your own thing. Like, okay, look, I know I need to do this. If I'm gonna do this, can you help me enjoy it? You know, can you at least help me enjoy some part of it, or give me an idea of something I can do for this? And maybe it's like, I'm gonna put on a podcast and start cleaning. But you get some ideas. You open yourself up to another line of thought, another kind of feeling.
And Katie in this story is a real woman that really married you.
There's a real human being out there named Katie, who
Does
is
she
my
live
wife.
in Canada?
Yeah, does she live near the Niagara Falls area, and you know she went to summer camp with? No, this is a real human being.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, she's incredible. She actually trusts me to go do these things now.
To clean. What
To
a
now
what a
clean.
boy you are.
Yeah, what a big
good
strong boy I am.
I think also, you know, related to this willingness to do the steps is this idea I hear a lot in the program, which is just do the next right thing. Well, I'm going to tell you what I think it means.
Tell me.
Because you just talked for a while.
I talked for a while.
I don't know how long, because I zoned out. I guess it's this idea that, like, you know, sometimes I don't see the full path of, like, how do I get from this spot to, like, all of my goals and dreams? But I don't need to have every single move and plan figured out. It's like if I'm gonna run a 10-mile run, I don't need to know what turn I'm gonna make on mile 8 for me to take step 1 today. And so it's this do this next right thing is just, I can often know the next thing that would be productive or helpful and sort of sense things out in that way. So it's sort of like, I don't know, in certain video games, there's like a dark map, and as you go further, the map gets like illuminated. I don't have to know like what's at the other edge of the map to go one step further. And I can sort of feel things out and be like, okay, this next step, okay, I'm on solid footing, I'm stable, it's safe, I'm gonna take that step. And then from there, I'm able to do the same process over and over. And so in the same way, it's like, I don't have to imagine how I'm gonna call my grandfather and we're gonna meet up and he's gonna probably smell weird and then I'm gonna have to buy dinner and then I'm gonna have to tell him all this stuff. Like, I can just make the call and arrange the thing, and that's the next right thing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's what I've got.
So I want to touch on this briefly. I mentioned that I'd be talking about this in the last episode. What happens if you don't want to do another step?
You just stop.
Yeah, you just stop.
You just die.
You can just stop. So what happened for me was I did stop after step 7.
You did?
I felt so good after finishing my 5th step inventory, and then doing 6 and 7 in the same afternoon.
I like that.
I felt connected.
It's like, I'm so healed, why would I ever go say sorry for anything?
Yeah, why would I go knock on somebody's door and be like, hey, I fucked you over.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm so different now.
Right.
It was like, why would I want to make a list and write down names of people that I had harmed? Like, my subconscious is fighting me on this because it's good for me, but it involves change, so it doesn't want to do that. So what I did was, okay, so first of all, I went to Europe There was, yeah, I had a trip planned to Europe, and it was incredible. But it was my first. I mean, I was like 7 months sober, I think, 8 months sober, and I went to Europe, and I had like this. I was walking around, in Stockholm, going to AA meetings in Swedish language, having this like experience of people. Like I couldn't understand a fucking word they're saying in this Swedish language meeting. But like some woman starts crying, and then like everybody starts crying, and then
Swedish
I start crying.
tears, which are full of chocolate.
Yes, yes, they're very chocolatey. Yeah. And so I started crying, and I could feel like the spirit moving through us.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is what the 12 steps are. This is what these meetings are. The fellowship. We come here, and like people come in with this heavy shit. And they lay it down, and then everybody picks up a little bit of it, and then they participate in it, and they get to put their stuff down.
So you took a break.
And so, yeah, so I'm having all of these huge experiences. And then a week later, it had been a week since my last meeting, and in the meantime, we'd gone through like 3 different countries, including going to Auschwitz in Poland.
Katie?
No, this was with my previous girlfriend who was there for me, like listening to my breathing at night. Like she was this incredible person that really kind of helped me.
Listening to your breathing?
Like, yeah, I was with her at the end of my drinking. So I was at my sickest, and she basically helped me to not.
Like a wheezing.
Yeah, I mean, it was this rough situation.
Anyway.
And our best friend, our roommate. And so we were going through Europe, and we're having this amazing time. But we go to Auschwitz.
Fun.
And apparently in the tour, they told us, they killed alcoholics at Auschwitz. They were some of
Really?
the first to go because they were in the asylums. This is what used to happen to alcoholics and addicts. They'd throw you in the asylum. So a little known fact. So I started to take it on as like some kind of self-pity thing, like, oh, they killed my people here. Like I'm not a Jewish guy. I'm not, but I was an alcoholic. So, they would have killed me. So now there was this weird thing that happened. And a couple days later, we were in France at the Palace of Versailles, one of the most beautiful places on the planet.
So legacy.
Yeah, and I hadn't been to a meeting in a week, and this is the longest I'd ever gone without a meeting.
That's like the opposite of Auschwitz, Versailles.
Exactly. And so I was carrying around all this new heavy shit all of a sudden, and it was like, and it was everything I could. I had to leave Versailles to go to Paris to go to a meeting. And finally, when I walked into the meeting, it was like, oh God,
You Versailles.
thank you. Yes, I had a big Versailles, and so it was like. I was back to trying to manage this stuff on my own. And meanwhile, I'm only 7 or 8 months out of this thing. My brain is still not fully healed, right, of all this stuff that I've been doing. Now, you fast forward that a couple months. I didn't do another step until about November of that year. So like 2 more months. I was now... the reason I stopped balking at step 7 and got into step 8 was I started having suicidal thoughts. Just, out of the blue.
Fancy that.
Not out of the blue. It was out of balking and not moving forward. So if I'm not progressing, I'm regressing is the idea. And, it's different for different people. My brain is one that goes that direction. It gets obsessive, and then it gets really thinky, and it gets negative. And I'll start, so it's been a long time since I've had this because I practice this stuff daily now. I've learned, but I started having suicidal thoughts where a voice in my head was telling me to die. And it was kind of like fun at times, like funny, I should say. It was like, gallows humor. It would sing a song like, you should kill yourself.
Hopefully with a better voice.
Yeah, I mean, it was, thank you. It was not a good voice either way, but yeah, so I had like this stuff going on. I'm starting to get into self-pity around it. And so, like, this is the ugliness of the regression, if you ever stop at something. I'm actually grateful that this is the kind of brain I have because, look, I'm here to help with the people that are watching because, like, you may not have a situation where you're going to have a suicidal, thought parade march through your head for a couple weeks if you...
Kill yourself.
Exactly. That's what it was like, okay? But I am here to report, like, that's what was happening for me whenever I stopped at these things. Whenever I got so stressed out, like that was like the cue from my brain that it was at its max and it needed solution. And if I let it persist, I was going to go back. Like drinking would shut it up. I never had a suicidal thought until I stopped drinking. And all of a sudden it was like, maybe
so then
this
how
is
did
connected.
you realize that you needed to like get out of that by doing more step work?
So what I found was anytime I have any trouble mentally or in life, if I have a new job or a new relationship or something stressful going on, if I double down on this stuff, if I have more conversations each day, so like I'll go to an extra meeting a day for a while, what I found was if I double down on the spiritual work, it gets back into what the real problem is. And so that's what I did. I was like, oh yeah, I haven't done steps 8 and 9. Man, I think I have to dust off my phone and call my sponsor and like start working the step again. And what I found was once I started working the step and actually got into the 9th step and started making amends, it started taking that corrective action that I've never had to go back and redo that stuff again. Like I've never had to really deal with this ever again once I took the full measure of action. So it's kind of like I was avoiding it.
It's like if you're like, there's something scary inside a room and I'm just going to stand at the door for 3 months and like stand there. It's like, obviously it's going to make you uncomfortable.
Totally.
The longer you wait.
Yeah, so this monster, had kind of a makeshift cage built. The monster in my mind that was, getting in charge and drinking and taking my life apart, hurting others. But now it's like breaking out of the cage because I'm not keeping the cage up. I'm not helping with that. So this is the thing that fortifies. Like we have to teach this thing the lesson of if you've spilled the milk, this is what has to happen, and it's going to be painful possibly to go and make these amends, but that's what we have to go and do this outcome to get the result of losing this shame. So ultimately what I found was those voices, telling me terrible things and criticizing me were coming from this old shame from the very earliest times in my life. And when I can go and address, and do the ultimate good to people and say, hey, I've harmed you and I'm here to, is there anything I can do to, make it better, make it right? That seemed to right the ship. And so this is crazy because that's objectively a mental illness that I was experiencing, right? Like objectively, you're hearing a voice that's telling you to kill yourself. That's mental illness. And doing these steps made that all go away. And that's crazy because I wasn't medicated. I'm not saying, I don't want to get into a debate about medication or anything. Like if you're having that situation, you should go to a therapist for sure. You might need to be prescribed medication. I didn't have health insurance and I was pretty dumb about how to do this stuff, but I was able to make it through just by doing the steps, which is crazy, all right? So something, a new power flowed into my life when I was able to make these amends.
So you're saying you don't recommend waiting and going to Europe?
In short, yeah, no matter what is going on in your life, keep on moving. Don't stop and, wait. Just keep progressing through this stuff. And the outcome that we're moving towards here is steps 10, 11, and 12. 10, 11, and 12 are a daily practice of all the other steps. And so once you've gone and made all of these amends from all these old people in your life in step 9, the idea is like, it's piecemeal from there on out. It's as one comes up, you go and make the amend. If you realize that you have an amend to make. Living your life around, these spiritual principles and living your best life.
Yes.
Yes. That was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's important to talk about this stuff.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So there's this prayer. I think some of this, what we're doing in the 8th and 9th step is really living into that forgiveness. Like I can go apologize or clean things up because the good news is actually I'm already healed. I'm already forgiven. I already have this love from a higher power. And so I see here we have a well-known prayer from the Bible about love. Shall we read it?
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead?
Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. From, of course, 1 Corinthians 13-4-7.
Yeah, great. Yeah, 1 Corinthians. I think that means that we're going to get married now. That's what that means. You hear that at every wedding, right? So I like this reading just because it's. I like the idea of this reading is I think it's the right idea when you're going into amends. It's kind of like all the stuff that you want, and I know it's from the Bible. You can say fuck the Bible, but that's a really beautiful passage, and it does seem to be true about this stuff. Love is patient. It's long suffering is another translation of that word patient. Long suffering. I like that idea. Like it will suffer. It's going to wait next to me, waiting for me to ask it to enter into my life. to get into a relationship with love, and it's just going to sit there and it's going to suffer along with me, it's obviously kind. So when I'm going to, I'm preparing myself to get to a place where I'm ready to make an amend in step 9. So these are the outcomes that I'm really going towards. I want to be patient. I want to be kind. I do not want to envy. I do not want to boast. I don't want to go in there proud. I'm not there to dishonor others, and I'm not there to be self-seeking. I'm there for the other person. I'm not easily angered, so no matter what this person says to me, I'm preparing myself not to be easily angered. And I'm keeping no record of wrongs in terms of what they might have done to me. Like I've been praying for that motherfucker already. We've talked about the motherfucker prayer. If they've harmed me and I need to be free of it, I need to pray for that motherfucker, even if I have to call them a motherfucker to start the prayer. And then I'm wishing all the good things for them, and I'm doing that every day for 2 weeks. And apparently, that's the prescription towards, getting rid of these feelings of hate or whatever it is that I have with this person. That's the process of forgiveness, right? So that's how I can get free. I can give something for my freedom from this, situation with them. So love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. That's a nice directive to kind of say, like, I may have delighted in evil around some of the wrongs that I did with people. It's good to let them know about that. Like, not only did I do wrong, but I knew what I was doing, and I enjoyed it. It's good to get real clear on some of these things. And then it always rejoices with the truth, whatever the truth might be. Like I want to find out what that is. I'm still on this truth force. And then it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. I'm there to, ultimately get back into a protecting, trusting, hopeful, persevering relationship with love. And hopefully I'm carrying that with me to this person to leave at their doorstep, whether they'll take it or not. That's not up to me. That's why I like that little passage there.
I think it's nice.
It's nice. So what are the outcomes that we're looking for here? Why are we doing the 8th step?
I don't know.
Who gives a shit?
I just want to be rich. Mm-hmm. Well, what it says here, what I got here is basically it makes us accountable for our actions, increases our trustworthiness and solidness of being, increases self-esteem. And so, there's something like, I remember when I was like young, you'd see like some pretty girl and you'd be like, oh, I gotta like go talk to her or something, And I would muster up the courage and go talk to her, and sometimes be like, they'd, not be into it. But there was still this sense of like pride, like I was willing, like I went for it, And that's better than this kind of like shirking, hiding version of myself. And so I think there's a sort of elevation and just having that courage and that trust in some kind of higher power that like, I'm really like, that's no bigger test than like, I'm gonna go into a situation, I don't know the outcome, and I'm going to like live into the things I say I believe. And I'm like, I can believe them more the more I like live into them. Like I must be this different person because I'm certainly acting like one, So for me, that's one of the major outcomes is I can, look at myself and go, okay, like I called that, person I had, that ex-girlfriend, and I like scheduled a time to go talk with her, like I'm really doing this. And so that sense of like kind of pride, like taking a bit of responsibility and control over my life, and being someone who, speaks up and rights their wrongs are all things that I can hold my head a little bit higher.
So I'm curious.
Okay, I'm Alex.
Bye. So I'm curious. Can you tell me, did you have any situations that you were unwilling to make an amends?
No.
I mean, that you started out unwilling and you were able to become willing, and maybe tell a little story about that.
Sure. Give us a little something. Well, I had a situation where there was a roommate of mine from years ago that we were living in a place together, and we ended up, it's a long story, but we ended up breaking our lease. And this is like the height of my like basic drinking and drug use. And we broke this lease, and then that person ended up getting sued by the landlord to pay for the like unpaid rent for many months. Ended up being like, I think like $20,000 or something. And it wasn't even that nice of a place. There's a lot of back into it, but I felt like, I didn't really feel like I really had that much responsibility for the situation. Like, I did my part. I actually tried to break the lease in a way that was legal. I met with a lawyer, like all these reasons why like this wasn't my problem and my fault. And because I wasn't around at the time, he ended up getting saddled with the full debt payment, and I was like off scot-free. And that person like actually contacted, former coworkers of mine and stuff, trying to track down this money, like threatened to like get a judgment against me. And I was just like, blah, 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 like not my problem. And it wasn't on my credit report. There was no really reason I had to do any of it. And I had a real resent because this person had both pursued and like disrupted relationships in my life. And the initial thing didn't really feel like that significantly my thing or my cause of a problem. Nevertheless, for about 10 years, I had carried that around, and then I became willing to talk to that person and pay what ended up being like $12,500 back to the person. And over time, and basically what I got to the clarity of is like, no matter right or wrong or, whose fault or whatever, like I have to continue to carry this problem around, and I don't want to, Mm-hmm. And what is this thing sitting, it's like, it's taking up space in my mind, and like what is not there as a consequence of it because I have to carry this thing around. That person I went to school with in high school, so it was like this network of shame and like wondering what other people think about me or what do they know, because this person's probably not doing great PR for me in my life. And so being willing, despite all of that confusion and all this gray area and like ways I can justify what happened, being willing to be like, nope, like I'm going to take care of this. Thank you.
That's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that, why the fuck would anybody do that,
Yeah, and also, I guess it's the ninth step is really doing the amends, but, when you really live into these things, it's also like you're paying into like this new way of living. Like I just, made a $12,500, down payment into my new life in a way. Mm-hmm. And I think it's, for me, if I had like stolen money from, like a church, and then it's like so black and white, like, probably shouldn't do that. Even though I could probably muddy that up and make it gray and be like, well, like I needed to pay my rent and I was trying to do good, whatever. But in this case, I think particularly because it was gray, or I had a tendency to turn what is black and white into gray, like the clarity to be like, no, I need to do this either way, for me is a big learning.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so there's this idea of like heart and rational thinking equals growth. Love plus
the wise mind.
Well, yeah, right, yeah, exactly. So I'm using both my heart and my mind together, and I'm living heart forward. And I love that idea that I owe, and it's like for me to get free, I need to make this payment. And the great thing about that is, in my experience in paying like financial amends, when you make the payment, you actually feel free. So like now when I didn't like paying bills at the end of my drinking. Like I stopped paying all bills so that I could divert those funds.
What's great about really destroying your credit is you can't make it any worse.
Right, exactly.
So you can keep destroying it forever.
Exactly. So I've got a friend that works in credit, and he says, recovered alcoholics and addicts are the only people whose credit score changes drastically in their lifetime. I mean, he's like, if that's not a sign of growth and change, true change, he's like, I don't know what is. It's like they become somebody else.
Dude, my credit score, in the first year of me being sober, I lifted my credit score like 200 points.
That's incredible.
Email me, we can get you set up. I got a guy.
Yeah, we got a guy.
But no, really.
Yeah, it's incredible. So this idea that like I'm paying for this, and even making that payment actually feels, you have that connection to the greater thing. When you pay it off, it's just strange that all of a sudden like paying bills feels good. It never felt good ever, including when I was paying bills before I really entered into like the depths of alcoholic drinking. It became something that I had to learn how to have it feel good, or else, why would I do anything unless it felt good? Well, things that are good for me to do, like pay my bills, I also need those to feel good too. And so willingness is this massive, like how can I switch into that? And it's this strange thing. It's a little life hack, You can ask a God that you don't believe in for the willingness to do something, and you actually get delivered that will to do that thing that would be good for you. It's crazy.
I like that.
It is what it is. So this is not the amends step. This is becoming willing to make
The
amends.
pre-amends.
Yes, and
Amends.
we're constructing this list of
Checking it twice.
we're gonna find out who's naughty and nice, I hope. And we have those 4 areas that we talked about. Willing and able to make the amend. Willing and able, willing and not able, like if somebody's passed away or moved away or can't get contact with them. Unwilling and able, so yeah, they live down the street from me, but I don't want to go tell them, and maybe there's a crime involved. I may be afraid of that, but I'm going to pray for the willingness and see what happens. This is just about the willingness. We can decide later if I'm actually going to make an amend, if it's going to cause harm to me or someone else. But it's about becoming willing in that 3rd one, and then the 4th one, unwilling and unable. We're making a list there, and again, we're trying to become willing, even if we're unable to reach those people. Maybe they passed away or something like that. We're still trying to become willing and let the change of love enter into our lives and into our hearts.
And I think we'll get into, in the 9th step as well, like even for all of those scenarios, there are ways to take action to address all of them, even surprisingly unwilling and unable. There are things I can do to make an amends around that.
Exactly, yeah. So we're uncovering every stone here. And yeah, we have a list and we're trying to make right here. What was that little...
It was me. I was imagining uncovering a stone, and then there was a lizard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that lizard was the snake-like behavior I had previously exhibited that I am now cleaning up like milk. A milk lizard.
Well, and just a parting shot here.
Parting shot.
This old guy that wouldn't have paid that debt, that would have turned it into a gray area, even though it is kind of black and white. Like that guy, that's the false self that we were. That's the sick person that is on their way to death. And if we keep being that person with those actions, we're doomed to die, prematurely in pain, or at least a spiritual death where we don't feel alive, where we're running from everything.
Yeah.
So it's the idea of like, if we're going to kill the false self and let the false self die, we need to get into this honest way of living. And the next right action would be, if I'm unwilling, the next right action is pray for willingness. And if I have the willingness, then we can move to the 9th step on those things and say, okay, I'm ready to make the direct amend wherever possible, except when to do so would injure ourselves or them.
So 2 other my last parting shots.
Thank you.
Well, one is, I think there's something it's really hard often to put any concreteness around personal or human type progress. And so there's something for me, I love lists. And so this ability to like make a list and be like, okay, I'm 12 people or 12 situations away from resolving my list of harms. And then I can create new ones later, which is fun.
You can always add more.
But that ability to really like take, there's specific action, I can check things off a list and like have it be behind me, to me is very satisfying and puts some like real measurability into progress in a way that like me feeling more whole is a little harder to put a finger on. And so for step 8, the call to action, I think, is pretty straightforward, which is if you're really serious about this is, okay, like look back. Usually what you do is you look back on your step 4 and 5 and like, okay, where in all these things are all these basically historic traumas and actions that have occurred that I had some part in taking, did I need to make something right by now apologizing, either for people that are still alive, not still alive, situations, companies, whatever, and really assembling that list as the kind of call to action here.
Yeah, like did I steal somebody's bike or did I steal somebody's peace of mind? It can be tangible or intangible. Was there harm there? And I bet you dollars to donuts, the moral creatures that we've discovered ourselves to be and we can't stop being no matter what we try or how much we drink or how much we act out, it probably bothers you at some deep, deep level that you are unable to let go of shame and guilt, these human destroyers, unless we actually go and seek to atone for what we've, the harms that we've done in whatever way. And it might be messy. And that's why I love this part of the 7th step where it's like, put me to use, good or bad, just take all of me. And if something goes haywire here as I do your bidding, I guess it's going to be that's going to be part of the greater good's plan or whatever. And it may not go well. It may go well. I don't know. The outcome is not mine. The outcome that I'm looking for is internal. I need to have this experience of love and go serve that up to people.
So in step 9, we'll, I think, get more into the sort of the specifics and mechanics of how do I actually do this amends, like take this list, but what do I say, how do I think about it, and whatnot. And so I think that's all for today.
That's all for today. Yeah, and the step 9, we'll just give you a little preview. It's justice. That's the principle behind step 9 is justice. We're finally going to get justice.
Perfect.
And it's fucking amazing when you have a real sense of when justice is delivered. It is one of the most pure forms of love and joy that you'll ever feel in your entire life. And what is really real except for the feeling of love and joy?
So tune in next time to learn about that.
Yeah. Oh, and thank yous.
Thank yous to Tyler Duffus and his giant pepperoni nipples.
He's squeezing them at us
And
right
from
now.
Blackwater Audio.
Yep, Blackwater Audio, thank you, we love you. Avery Quest, we love you too. Thank you for Animal Cannibal, the theme song. Caleb Bond, our artist here, and he's not our artist, he's an artist at 38 State. Check him out on Instagram. And then...
and thank you to you, Zach, for tolerating me.
Oh, bro, like... to be tolerant today, to actually have joy when you deliver me this good news from your life. It's incredible.
Beautiful.
I have one more.
No.
So tomorrow is going to be 2 years since I've been married.
Really?
Yeah.
This is to that same Katie?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's an amazing, I just want to tell her, how grateful I am for you. And thank you so much for accepting me into your life and just showing me how to live and how to love and how to forgive and how to just walk in love. And I can't believe that I get to be married to you. And I can't believe that I actually have a fucking healthy relationship with an adult human female. That I don't think ever happened before until you. And I can't thank you enough for being my wife and just being the most amazing human I've ever met. I love you deeply. And that's a wrap on this step as well.
I can't believe that either. All right. Talk to you next time.
Peace.